This is Katrin with Disability Rights New York. Welcome to our podcast, Empire State of Rights, closed captioned. We are here to bring you information on the most relevant topics regarding disability rights and advocacy. Today, we welcome DRNY staff attorney, Amanda Pearlstein. She's going to discuss the U.S. Education Department's new student loan forgiveness policy for people with total and permanent disabilities, or TPD. Amanda, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Katrin. I'm excited to be here and to talk about this subject.
It's so important, especially now as we are very far into the pandemic and how it's affecting every community and all aspects of our lives. We have just seen some news that the Education Department is going to be forgiving a lot of loans, specifically for people with total and permanent disabilities. Now, although this is not a new policy necessarily, the availability of it has changed. So if you can, start by explaining why the student loan forgiveness policy appears to be new, or what is new about it, and what does it cover, and how do people get involved?
So this policy was just recently announced by the U.S. Department of Education. It starts taking effect this month, September 2021. And basically, it's a huge step forward in that it automatically forgives all of the federal student loan debt for individuals who are considered TPD, which I'll get into a little bit more about what that involves. But essentially, it's if you have a permanent disability that prevents you from working, they'll forgive your federal debt. And it's interesting because this dates back to actually 1965 when the total and permanent disability discharge program actually took effect, but you had to apply for it and people didn't realize that they were eligible. In fact, most of the borrowers, over 60% of those who are eligible for TPD didn't apply because they didn't know the program existed, didn't understand the process, didn't realize that they qualified. So what this does is it takes this, this right that these people already had but didn't realize and just makes it automatic. So you don't have to go through these bureaucratic hurdles. It will just be forgiven. So this involves federal loans, right? So this is like the Stafford loans, Grad Plus, Parent Plus, direct unsubsidized. You're probably familiar with these names if you've ever been a student and had to take out these loans. It doesn't apply to private loans. So if you borrowed from, for instance, Sallie Mae or one of those other private lenders, it doesn't apply to that. However, oftentimes those programs do have loan forgiveness options for people with TPD. So it is worth checking with your lender directly to ask about that. And then a couple of other things that this new policy does. So previously, if you had loan forgiveness as TPD, you would have to report on your earnings. And there was a 3-year monitoring period where they would kind of monitor your income to see if you had been making money beyond what you were allowed to do with this program. And oftentimes people would just forget to report or not report on time. And so then their loans would be reinstated, even though they were still disabled and still couldn't work. So what they're going to do is they're going to completely eliminate that hurdle. There is no 3-year monitoring period. It will just be automatic.
So I want to bring up something you were talking about earlier, and that is that there's this automatic through the Social Security Administration finding of people with total and permanent disabilities, but not everyone who would be identified as TPD is in that system. So if someone is not in that system, how do they go about finding out about the student loan forgiveness policy, and how do they really find the information they need to get that done?
Yeah, so I can talk a little bit more about the eligibility and kind of who is determined to be eligible and how that process works. So basically, to be eligible for this, you would need to meet the program's definition of total and permanent disability, which is under the Higher Education Act of 1965. And so basically what it says is you need to be unable to work due to your physical or mental disability that is expected to last for 60 months or longer, so 5 years or longer. So what this new policy does is it looks if you're receiving SSI or SSDI, you're in the Social Security Administration's database. And so they can automatically match who's in their database to who has these outstanding federal student loans, and they can just forgive the loans. And this is something that actually the VA has already been doing for years now. If you are a former service member and you have a VA disability rating of 100% or are considered totally disabled based on the VA's metrics, they'll do that. They'll automatically match and they'll forgive your federal debt. So this isn't new for them, but it is new for SSA. So what if you are not receiving SSI or SSD and you're not a veteran? You do still have this kind of total and permanent disability. So in that case, you can still apply through the conventional way of applying for this program, the loan forgiveness. You don't have to wait to be notified because you won't be matched because you're not in the SSA system. So what you would do then is you would just go to a doctor and get that doctor's letter explaining that you have the total and permanent disability. There's paperwork to fill out, and they would have to, attest that it would last for 5 or more years. And that's all. That whole process is available on disabilitydischarge.com, which is the official TPD program website. And so that'll explain, if you are not receiving SSI, but still are disabled and need your loans forgiven, kind of how you would go about doing that. They'll walk you through that process.
That's great information. And we will drop that website in the description of this podcast. And so we talked about notice. So people who are identified through the administration, how will they be notified? When do we think they'll be notified? And is it going to be something in writing? Do we know? Should they be on the lookout for something, or has that not been put forward yet?
So if you're eligible for this match program, you're going to receive your notice about a week after the next SSA quarterly data match, which is this month in September. So after that match, they'll be sending out the notices. And you're supposed to get the loans forgiven by the end of this year. That's kind of their goal. So if you don't get that notice and you think you're eligible, I would say go ahead and reach out to the Disability Discharge website, and they'll let you know. So yeah, if you are eligible for this automatic discharge and aren't getting it, definitely reach out, definitely ask about it.
That's really great that it's such a short term from beginning to hopefully the end for a lot of people to have this loan forgiveness. The end of the year is very close. Here we are in September. So that would be a really great thing for the end of the year for the people who are eligible for this. And also they won't be waiting a long time if someone thinks they're eligible and have not received that notice. So let's talk about some other options that may be available for individuals with a disability, but they may not qualify for total and permanent disability discharge. Can those individuals still receive relief for their student loan debt, maybe all or some? What options are available out there?
And I know this is a significant issue for people because there are many, probably millions of Americans who are living with some form of disability, physical or mental, who have this outstanding student loan debt. But they're still in a place where they're able to work, they're able to maintain some employment, but maybe underemployed or not earning, the full amount that they need. And that's a situation that so many people are in. And then especially now, I would say during the pandemic, people are grappling with the effects of long COVID who are newly disabled, who may be permanently disabled. We don't know what the long-term effects will be. So it's really something that many people are kind of newly dealing with. So yeah, so if you're underemployed because of your disability, or if you're having trouble paying back your student debt because of your disability or your illness or your injuries, but aren't considered TPD, you can still get help with your debt. There are a lot of lenders who will work with you on loan forbearance or deferment. So you'll have more time to pay it off without the interest accruing. There are income-driven repayment plans, which can be very helpful if you have, a lower income job. They'll adjust the amount that you have to pay back every month. So these are absolutely all worth looking into if you feel like you're struggling to pay back your student loans.
That's really great to know that there are other options available. And we will be keeping close track of this process and any news that may come up, and we will revisit it here if we need to. Thank you so much for joining me today and talking about this. This is really great news for so many people out there who are not only eligible, but certainly need this loan forgiveness right now. So, Amanda, is there anything else that you'd like to add today?
Yeah, I would just say this is a really encouraging step. It's been a long time coming. It's one of those things we look at and think, why wasn't this happening already? But yeah, this has been the law for many decades. And I think now they're realizing, and now they have the technology to say, listen, we can just do this for you. We'll match you. We'll forgive the debt. So this is, I'm optimistic. We'll see how it goes. And yeah, and if you have questions, that Disability Discharge website's a good place to look. There are a lot of articles about this process. I think this bodes well for people who are, like many of us, struggling to pay back their student debt.
Empire State of Rights Closed Captioned has been brought to you by Disability Rights New York, your source for disability rights and advocacy. If you enjoyed our program, make sure to subscribe, like, and share this post. If there is a subject you would like us to discuss, please email podcast@drny.org or comment below. Tune in next Wednesday, where we'll bring you more information on disability rights in the state of New York. The closed captioned and ASL version of this podcast is available on our YouTube channel. To listen to more Empire State of Rights closed captioned, follow us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.